Hey guys, this is Alex Krupski back again for Millennials in Print podcast, episode 3 with Jake Hoffman once again. And today we have another very special guest in Susan Pinter. She is Arandell's Director of Postal Systems and Operations, and we are stoked to have her on the show today.
Hi, Alex and Jake. How are you?
Good. Also, we're super excited to show off another part of Arandell. More importantly, our super cool retro orange chairs. So you don't get to see that every day.
At least we're coordinated, like we all have the orange chairs. You know, we're not just doing some
total 80s. Or 60s.
So I think, Susan, it's not every day you have a postal expert on the show. So if you could just kind of give us a little bit of background, how you got into the industry, and then also how did you find your way into the postal side of the equation?
So it all started when I was about 20 years old. I went and worked part-time bagging mail, sorting mail and bagging mail. And as the years went on, I went to different printing companies, and somehow I got put in the postal end to learn the rules and regulations. And as the years go on, here I am at Arandell 35 years later. So I enjoy the postal. It's very interesting, very challenging, and every day it's very, there's more to learn. And as the new PMG comes out this year, there's even more to learn. So, but welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I think for the context of, ourselves, obviously, as well as our audience, I think it'd be interesting to hear, maybe some of the other printers you had worked at before Arandell.
So when I started bagging mail, I worked for a company called Direct Marketing, and it was just a small mom and pop shop. There was one little press and 2 owners, and we started out with just mailing cards for insurance companies, running an inkjet machine, sorting it manually, and off to the post office it goes. So from there, the company kind of grew, and another company outbought them, which was Direct Marketing Services, which was another printer, and they were out in Pewaukee, and kind of outgrew them, and I ended up going to a large printer in Milwaukee here called Wisconsin Color Press, and over the years that closed, with the economy and all the changes, and before I came to Arandell, I was with Perry Judds.
Another Perry alum.
Another Perry, yes.
I was just going to say that.
Yes.
We know a lot about Perry Judds.
So I got a call from Arandell. So the old VP of Postal Affairs called me and asked me if I'd come and interview. And here I am today, almost 19 years later.
It's crazy. I think we've heard similar stories about Perry Judds too, and just like the culture there. I think there's some similarities between Perry Judds, what Perry Judds was, and what Arandell maybe is now. I think it's part of just carrying over some of the people that were there, probably.
Yeah, there's several of us.
Yeah, I feel like more than several, yeah. So what was it about Perry Judds back in the day that I just hear everybody talk so positively about it? What
it was a beautiful building. It was out in Waterloo, and it was a bigger company for me at the time. And I actually was only there about 7 months before I came to Arandell.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so and what's kind of funny is a funny story is where I parked, because I carpooled with a couple of people because it was an hour away from home. Brad Hoffman, I actually parked next to Brad Hoffman in the basement of Perry Judds. So, and here we are, 18, 19 years later. How funny is that?
Yeah, Brad Hoffman. I don't know. Never heard of him.
Jake knows nothing about Brad, obviously. Hoffman. No, it's crazy to hear some of those stories, I think, from back in the day a little bit too, and just to see where things have come now. So, I mean, talking about where things have come or where they used to be and where they are now, like what really are some of the biggest industry changes you've seen in kind of your realm?
Well, I think, when I started out, things were more manual. Everything you did was manual. You looked at zip codes, you sorted them, you put a sticker on them, and today everything's with a barcode. I mean, the barcode tells the post office everything about the mailing. This is where you live, this is, the zip code. So I think it's the automation that has kind of moved everything along. It's not, even the Postal Service has a system called the scorecard for a mailer. And you don't even have a clerk on site anymore. the scorecard tells the Postal Service everything you're doing about your mailings. So it's a big change from 20 years ago.
I guess one of the other things, that has kind of recently come out is it seems like, and maybe I'm just interpreting this completely wrong, but it seems like one postmaster will come in, make some changes or try to do things one way. Then the next postmaster will come in, try to do some things, a completely different way. And it seems like at times almost like a disjointed effort.
It is.
So how, I guess from my perspective, like, do you see there being an advantage of having it be more of like a committee type of thing, or how do we as like mailers advocate and try to change some of maybe the rules and regulations that are getting into place?
Well, it's all governed. And I think the new PMG that just came in last September or so, he's different. He has no postal background. His background is all logistics. So he's coming into this company that's very driven by mail. And in his world, he's more logistics. How do the trucks move? Let's kind of make the business work like a business instead of the Postal Service. So he's different, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with his 10-year plan and different things he wants to do.
Yeah, so like talking about the 10-year plan, like were there any things in particular that like kind of jumped out to you, or were there things you're like, whoa, what's...
Well, I think there's a few things. One would be the logistics end of it. So like with delivery with first class mail.
Sure.
So first class mail, I mean, a lot of it goes in planes and even in marketing mail. Well, the PMG wants to make it more surface. He wants to get the trucks out on the road. I think that's one thing. He wants to see that part of the Postal Service change. So I think with that and, the rate structures they're talking about, they're very focused on packages. So years ago it was, it's the mail. And this PMG is making packages a big, big focus of the Postal Service right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, speaking on behalf of other audience members, maybe like myself, that have not been in this industry as long, it's a little bit complicated.
It's very complicated, yeah.
And not even just on the postal side, but all around. There's complications. There's a lot going on.
Well, and I think right now there's especially a lot going on, between the 10-year plan, they want to increase rates, they want to change service standards. I mean, there's all of this going on at one time. They even want to take some of the classes of mail and put it into a different bracket. So we have, what we do is market dominant. See, they want to put it into competitive. So we have a couple mailers that are going to be impacted by this because it's going to be treated like a parcel and the rates are going to go astronomically high. So I think this PMG is really, he's stirring the pot all over the place. I mean, industries, there's petitions going out there. There's the associations are getting together. They're trying to fight things, but he's charging forward.
Yeah. Can you talk about maybe some of those organizations that you're involved with on the postal side and sort of what their role is with sort of the post office?
So there's a couple of things. So we got Postcom. So Postcom Association is an association for mailers, mail owners, mail service providers, logistics people. They get together and they try to work very closely with the Postal Service to try to help improve some of these things.
Okay.
There's also MTAC, so the Mailers Technical Advisory Committee, which is kind of run by the Postal Service. Mm-hmm. And the industry, you get to be part of this MTAC association, and you work closely with the Postal Service. So over the years of, as things change in the post office, the Postal Service normally involves the Mailers Technical Advisory Committee. We're involved in that. We know what's going to happen.
Okay.
This year, with everything that's changed, there was no engagement with the industry whatsoever. Wow. So the PMG just kind of moved forward with that. There's been talks, we'll get together, we'll talk about it, but, they just kind of charge forward with everything.
Come to fruition.
Yes.
Sounds like
yes.
Interesting.
So let's say we give Susan Pinter the fairy godmother wand and say, yeah, you get to do things the way you want. You are the new head of the USPS. what would you do?
That'd be a big salary.
She's going on vacation first thing. What would be some of the things that you would focus on?
I think one thing would be collaboration. I think with what's happening right now, it could be detrimental to the industry. I mean, this industry, this supply chain is massive. And I think what's happening is they're kind of taking it their own way. They're charging forward. And there's going to be a lot of train wrecks as they move forward with it. So what would I do? I think the collaboration, since I've been through probably 5 or 6 different PMGs. Our last PMG, Megan Brennan, she was a woman. She was awesome, but she moved on. So I think the collaboration is a big one. So especially like with some of these things like service standards.
Sure.
First class. So when you mail a first class piece, you expect delivery when, 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So, and what they're talking about is there's certain areas that are going to be impacted. It's not going to be 3 days. It could be 4 days. It could be 5 days. So some of these mailings the postcard mailings, that you want to get them out in the mail right away, they're going to be impacted. And it could hurt a lot of businesses.
And I think what might be tough is if there isn't a set standard, how are brands going to manage or plan accordingly? Right. Especially with like sales and those.
It's very hard right now because nobody knows which way it's going to go, and then even with the rate increase, they're talking if they file it in May, it could be mid-August, end of August, it goes into play, 5-7%. It's going to be a lot.
And if that rate case kind of goes through, because obviously you've seen these rate increases happen before. What is the typical mailer response? Is it to mail less? Is it to mail?
The circulation will decrease.
Okay.
There was a big rate increase. It's going on to, was it 2009, 2010? I mean, it was like a 12-15%. I mean, the volume went down. I mean, and we try to achieve everything we can to get the lowest rates. But, if you don't have that in your budget, it's going to be hard to absorb all that.
And do you think that brands will, drop page counts further, or you think it's just, or look at maybe like a different format so that they're not in?
It could be a combination of both. I mean, they could try to go, these catalogers that are over the 4-ounce rule. Maybe they're going to, reduce the page count to get under a per piece cost. Will they go to letter mail? Don't know. I mean, that's going to take a hit too. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. But one thing I will say is I think we need to encourage our sales, our customers, make comments to the post office. Let them know what's going to happen. I mean, the more that they hear from everybody, I mean, not saying anything's going to change, but they need to hear the voices of everyone.
And we talked about that a little bit in our last episode with Steve too. Is this industry to me feels different in the fact that there is collaboration across customers, across competitors, with vendors to customers and things like that. I think that's something interesting. I don't know if you feel the same way, that it's a more collaborative industry than maybe others.
I will say from a postal standpoint, we get together and I sit with our competitors. And we talk strategies about what could be changed at the post office. It's not like it's secretive. I mean, we all can do what we can do.
We're all kind of fighting the same fight.
Yes. I mean, so we sit down and we kind of talk about, what can we do to improve things? And, I mean, with COVID, I mean, we haven't been together in a year now. I mean, you can get on the Zoom calls, but it's just not the same. Yeah. It's not the same. So, Alex, one of the things you talked about was what can we do to help with our customers with this rate increase? And, there's a couple different things we can do. We can kind of give them guidelines on, if they reduce their page counts, they can get under that 4-ounce rule. They can participate in the postal promotions because that goes through the whole year, and there's different promotions behind that. That's 2% of their mailing. Yeah. They get a discount, so I think that's one thing we could encourage. And I think just really working with them to try to keep things automated. Making sure their databases are good and their lists are good. And then, and the other thing, yeah. And then, and work with them. So, and also too, I think one thing that would be good for our customers too, the Postal Service has a system called EPS, and that's a way to pay their postage in an automated environment instead of having to cut a check, having to mail it. So we're saving costs by doing that. I think engaging our customers in the EPS account would be fabulous
Yeah. One of the things I was going to ask you about too, and actually we brought it up with Steve too, is obviously I'll call it traditional print customer looks a lot different today than it did, even 5 years ago maybe. So are you finding yourself having to do a lot more like education?
Yes. So the customers nowadays, so you go back 5 years, 6 years ago, the majority was retailers. That has changed a lot. So, and a lot of these new customers, it's just like teaching them, ABCs of Postal. And, Postal can be over the top crazy. So teaching them just even what a permit is and, and how to pay postage with a permit. And it's a different breed.
Are you seeing a little bit of like shock when customers first like experience, like all of a sudden a storm hits and where's my mail, or are you seeing sort of like kind of an atypical reaction to some of the?
I think, when the newer customers or not so educated customers, when the mail's out for delivery and we say we took it to the post office on this date and they're expecting it to deliver the next day, it just doesn't work like that. So, and I think it's the education of just telling them, we took it here and, anticipate service standards in 3 to 5 days. But with the crazy stuff at the Postal Service, it gets delayed lately, and it's hard for a new customer to understand that. This is what's been happening. Delivery just isn't like it was.
Yeah, and especially it's like we hand it off, and then it's like...
Yeah.
Yeah,
but so the one thing we do have, though, with the delivery and stuff, so we have on every book, there's a barcode. It's got a unique serial number in it. We have a data upload to our system every day, so customers can go on our site and see the tracking of their mail. They can see where it's at and if it anticipated out for delivery the following day. So that's something as an added value we provide our customers.
So I think what you're kind of getting at is what we talked about before, is that things are complicated. They're getting more complicated, but there also are more tools and more technology to assist them with that.
Absolutely.
And make that kind of known that, okay, yeah, there is this storm, but here's your mail. We know where it is. It's not just lost.
Right. And and as I work with these newer customers coming in, we'll schedule a webinar. And so the webinar may start out to be just setting them up on EPS. And before you know it, we're going into tracking, delivery, and the whole gamut.
The whole
lesson plan.
From Susan Pinter.
The ABCs.
Yeah.
The ABCs. Yeah, exactly.
Postal. Yeah.
So I think we can circle back on the postal promotions a little bit, because I think that that's kind of a compelling reason or compelling program to take advantage of. How has that kind of changed over the last couple of years? Because again, new technology, VR, AR, things like that.
Right, and I think the postal promotion. So every year, the mail owner will they have accomplished everything that you have to do for these requirements. So the next year, the Postal Service may add one little bit more difficulty to that. So, it's just paying attention to what they want. So one of the things is with the mobile shopping. You put a QR code on your book. You have that QR code tied to a URL. You can go on there, and the customer, when they get their book in the mail, you put your phone over it, you read it, and you go to their website and purchase something. So years ago, it used to be, no, they didn't want that ugly QR code on there. But you know what? With technology days, they can do it in like a water tag. And different uniques, they can do it on their logo, and it's just a little bit more exciting. It makes it look better. So, but 2% adds up.
Yeah. especially for some of those bigger mailers. I gotta believe 2%.
Right.
Is a big
And
deal.
so, one of the newer promotions over the last couple of years is informed delivery. So with the informed delivery, are you familiar with informed delivery?
I am, but I would like to know more.
I've written blog posts about it, but I think you could fill me in a little bit better.
So informed delivery is the program the Postal Service has. So what it is you go onto their website, you sign up for it. So you go on there, put all your information in, and what'll happen is your mail going to Jake Hoffman.
Yeah.
When those pieces scan at the post office, you'll get that in your email the next day, and it'll say, "Hey, Jake, you got your AT&T bill coming today," or you'll get a catalog. It won't be the actual scan of the catalog, but with the informed delivery, with the barcode, there's the Postal Service has something called a campaign where you go and you build this campaign and you put an image of what the catalog looks like. So when
you're like uploading.
Yeah, so when I put that barcode on your piece, that barcode is tied to that image that you uploaded to the site, and it kind of correlates it and ties it back together. So it's kind of neat to see your mail when oh, I got bills coming today, or I got this cool catalog coming. So, but it is a very simple promotion for customers to do, and they get that 2%. So there's a little bit of requirements with flats. You don't get the 2% on every piece because there's a lot of pieces that bypass the equipment, but on the letter mail you do. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I actually am like signed up for informed delivery, and when I found it was like really helpful was when I was traveling a lot, obviously pre-COVID, because I could know what's coming in, or even like I think they do packages too.
They're starting to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that was really nice to know, because then I could let someone know, hey, do you mind just throwing that in my house or whatever. So
now I'm gonna tee this up in a really weird way, so just stick with me here, guys.
Okay.
Audience at home. Susan was our latest team member spotlight for the month of April. I will say that. So kudos to Susan. And in there we talked about Susan being a subject matter expert, like the epitome of it. So I love how passionate you get about informed delivery and postal systems and things like that most people don't. Do you see the postal promotions as being like an underutilized kind of program that not a lot of people take advantage of? Or?
I think over the years, the amount of people participating in the promotion has grown. I mean, because they're all trying to save money. And so with some of the promotions, they're getting information that they wouldn't have had if they didn't do the promotion. So, yeah, so especially with informed delivery, they're getting that. And so with the mobile shopping, they're capturing everybody that's coming onto their website and stuff. And so one of the other promotions is the emerging technology. There's different things you can do with that too. I mean, and tactile, you can have special paper, you can, add scent to the book. I mean, there's just different things that the Postal Service's goal is to engage digital to print. So
yeah, and I know one of the challenges is, if you wind the clock back a little bit, the sort of augmented reality, virtual reality costs were so high that 2%, their net benefit would have actually costed them more.
Yeah.
Where I think those costs are starting to lower, so that 2%, you're capturing that 2% for a lot less than you'd have to invest earlier on some of those emerging technologies.
And some of the technologies are, like you said, are just getting so much easier to do. Yeah. And so, the Postal Service sees that, so they keep adding more and more.
Yeah, I think AR VR is an interesting one where we've seen a few people take advantage of it, but the tech isn't quite there for them to meet that threshold where they're covering their costs with it. Right. But I think it's something exciting. I mean, the demos that we've seen about it. I think the technology is still emerging in that realm, but you just envision a future at this point where you can see some of the benefits of it that it could have for end consumers.
So, and you know what? We should do a plug for promotions. We should do a video on that, or a podcast or something on promotions.
This is it. We're doing it.
Yeah.
We'll just cut this.
I mean,
part.
to get into the weeds. So, yeah.
Susan, I know we want to be conscious of everybody's time here, but I think so. We're kind of starting to wrap up the show. Just wanted to give the ball to you and see if you kind of had any parting words, any last things, any final thoughts.
just everyone pay attention to what's going on. So everything's coming so fast. I mean, you know, for us as the meal service providers, even trying technology to install or develop all these changes that are happening, it's going to be crazy. We're on a roller coaster.
And we're all riding together.
There you go.
And we're all tall enough to ride.
Well, get out your magic wand, Susan.
The fairy godmother
The
wand.
fairy
Yeah.
godmother wand.
Well, thanks again, Susan, for joining us on behalf of Millennials in Print Podcast, Episode 3. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no
Absolutely.
problem.
Thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.